Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as you can probably guess by what is in frame, today's video is going to be the full flip through of my 8th bullet journal, which is the first time I've actually gotten an entire calendar year in one notebook. So as you guys know, if you've seen any of my other planning videos, I also use my PROJO in conjunction with all of this, but I'm not actually going to do a flip through of my 4 quarterly PROJOs for 2019 because you guys have seen them in the quarterly plan with me's, but I will do a full flip through of what is in my actual bullet journal. So for those of you who are maybe less familiar with the system I use, I basically treat bullet journaling as the philosophy behind how I plan, as in I take the parts that work for me and I use them and I adjust the things that don't work quite so well. So for example, one of the biggest differences in how I plan versus a traditional bullet journal, if you will, is I don't use only one notebook. I have found that it is very helpful for me in fulfilling my goals to also have a dedicated project journal that kind of helps me do all the behind the scenes planning, and then I keep really what I'm working on a day-to-day basis in my bullet journal, along with some tracking stuff, which you guys will see that as we go through this. But just in case you are wondering, this is not absolutely everything I use. This is just going to be the specific bullet journal flip through so you can see what a year in my bullet journal actually looks like. So without further ado, let's get started. Actually, before I do that, because this is a full year, I am planning to do a second version. Up here, you'll probably find a card that is just the time-lapsed version without any of the explanations, because I know some people don't like to hear me chat for however long this is going to end up being. So now let's get started. So as you can see, I have already archived my bullet journal. I archive all of my journals the same way. I have bullet journal, which number it is, and then the dates and the year that I have gotten inside this particular notebook. I also do the archive sticker on the front over here. It's always a little weird when I have an official bullet journal because I don't cover up this, but normally my sticker goes like right kind of here, so it just always gets moved up a little further. This particular bullet journal is actually the stealth bullet journal, so it's got the coated edges here that are all in black, and this is the journal that I got when I purchased the collector's edition of the bullet journal method. So it's, as far as I know, you can't actually find the stealth bullet journal just like for sale by itself, but it is just the official bullet journal. So if you get the official bullet journal in any of the colors, like it's the same thing basically. So let's go ahead. I kind of have arbitrarily placed my bookmarks in here still. I'm not even sure where they are, so we'll find out where I've decided to leave them. So in here, I've got my little manifesto of the brave and brokenhearted. So I read a couple of books and watched some TED Talks by Brene Brown, and I really just liked having this, so I just went ahead and printed it out. I got the PDF from her website and printed it out and pasted it in here so I'd have it to look at. I also have my top 5 goals overview, and if you notice the color change, it's because my copper Faber-Castell ran out of ink, and so I've moved on to using a bronze Uniball Signo, and so I just had to redo all of them so they would look like sort of similar. So as you can see, my top 5 goals for the year were pretty successful overall. I did not finish my first font. Yeah, it's one of my top goals for this year actually. And I didn't hit 50,000 on YouTube, but I feel like in general, YouTube has been pretty successful. So even though it's not technically a completed goal, I feel like this was a successful year. Then you can also see I've got my little numbers over here. This is for the project pages that I have in my bullet journal, just so that I have my little page threading as I typically do. Here we've got, so this was probably my biggest fail for the year. I wanted to take part in the bullet journal method book club, and as you can see, I did the first week. Yeah, I just did not have the time to do this, and for whatever reason, I love to read, but I am not really a big book club kind of person. I just tend to do things at my own pace, and so I pasted this in here hoping that I would participate in this book club because I thought it was a fantastic idea, and it just did not happen. So it is actually still on my list to reread the bullet journal method because I want to, you know, having implemented some things from the first time I read it, I'd like to reread it and see if there's anything else that I'd like to try and improve in my system. So yeah, just name and my email in case my bullet journal gets lost, although my bullet journal basically just lives at my house unless I'm traveling, so it's fairly unlikely that it will get lost, but you know, just in case. Then just a couple little things over here. So I've got my index over here, and this in the official bullet journal, they actually give you 2 full spreads. So I actually used most of it, but because I had 2 full spreads, I didn't even bother doing a line down the middle to split them, even though I really only need about half of the column in order to do my indexing. So you'll see over here, pretty standard indexing. I do kind of do like a at the line and then a little indent for all of my monthly stuff, so I can really see where my months kind of split apart. I also do the main color code. I actually think I'm not going to do this for 2020. We'll see how it goes. I've done this for several years at this point, and I'm just ready for a change. So, yep, indexing, pretty standard. Then I've got my Calendex and my future log, and you might notice that my Calendex did not get heavily used. This is one of the reasons why I'm not doing a Calendex in this year's bullet journal, just because I realized that for the way my schedule works, I actually don't really need the flexibility that this gives me. This is actually sufficient for me. So, and as you can see, I have my standard future log over here. Then I've got my 54321. So this was one of the spreads that Ryder talked about in the bullet journal method, and I gave it a shot, and honestly, it just didn't really work for me. Yeah, it was a really good exercise, but I've had to adapt how I do this sort of a thing just to make it work a little bit better, because as you can see, I have a lot more stuff up here and very little down here. If you're interested, I did do a little video on the 54321 if you haven't actually read the book, although I recommend you read the book to find out what it is, but in case you would rather watch a video, I'll link that. Then I've got savings and expenses. I'm abandoning this for next year because I have decided that YNAB is actually sufficient for my purposes, but I am still keeping most of this just because I like having it written down so I can kind of see month to month what my income is. It kind of keeps me on track, because sometimes when I put it into YNAB and I do all my budgeting, I don't really get a big picture of like how much income I actually make, so I find that this is helpful. So this was for my Calendex carryover. I actually don't really have any other Calendex things in my bullet journal. There might be a couple here and there, but most of it is on here because I just didn't really have much to add to it. So this is not in my new bullet journal. Here is my waiting for. I have done this for many bullet journals, and I don't order a ton online. Like, this is not really representative of how much I usually order online, but when I do order online, it's typically stuff that I never order so much that I'm gonna forget that I have something coming. So this is kind of a not as useful spread for me anymore. Ditto Nespresso, I've changed my sort of method. They have a subscription for people in Europe. I don't think they actually do it in the US. And so I actually just do that. And so as long as I stay within my subscription amount that I pay, that's enough coffee for me. And I don't really need to track how much I buy month to month because it's a set fee every single month. So my YouTube calendar, I love this. This is really helpful. I am using my big wall calendar for this year, so we'll see how that actually goes in terms of filling in this, which I did keep in my new bullet journal. But this just lets me go back and see, did I post every week? What kinds of videos did I do? How did I space them out? Just kind of general information. Got YouTube tracker, Instagram tracker. As you can see, I've abandoned Instagram. It's just become less of a priority, so I've stopped tracking it. And then we've got YouTube workflow. I think I've actually got 4 YouTube workflow spreads in this bullet journal because, like, lots of videos. I mean, if you post every single week, then it adds up. These were a list of things to film and some series ideas. So all of these have either been filmed or dealt with or moved to another spread. So that was pretty useful. I don't tend to have many pages like this, but it's nice to have at least one running list of things that I'd like to film eventually. So that's kind of what that's for. Then I've got my library loans and K-dramas. I actually ended up, I was debating if I wanted to leave these two kind of open and keep filling them out into this year, but I have actually decided to do my K-drama trackers in my collection bullet journal, and so I've just redrawn the spreads for these so I don't have to actually come into this. I like to only come back to my bullet journals for archive purposes, not to actually continue filling things in after I've finished with them, so that was why I ended up doing that. Let's see. So then we're into January, and unfortunately my copper Faber-Castell transferred a little bit as I was writing over here, which is kind of a bummer, but you know, it is what it is. So have my log and tasks. So this page is probably the one that has sort of changed the most. At the beginning of the year, I was doing tasks that I wanted to do, and it was kind of like top priorities for things that I needed to deal with that month, as opposed to just like day-to-day little things. Then I've got tracker. So this is back when I was doing my full evening skincare tracker, and as you can see, I was fairly consistent, which was actually really great. So skincare legend, legend for other things up here, review for the month, and then the books that I read. So I always mark first and foremost, like yes or no, did I meet my goal? And then in parentheses, I do how many books I actually read that month. So, and I am gonna show you guys my finished reading tracker for 2019 at the end of the video. So you can kind of see like, you'll see month to month, but then you can see how I actually track the year as a whole, because this is not super helpful for getting a good overview of how much I read and what I thought about the books and that kind of stuff. Then gratitude and brain dump. I should go back to doing a gratitude thing. I haven't done that for a few months. So brain dump, this is one of the few places where I actually do use the Alistair method, and I can link that up here. So this is JPS, is work, personal, and sunshine and stationary, basically. And so whatever I dump in the brain dump, basically when I do my brain dumps, if I do them, as you'll see later, I just go through and I make the list. And then after I'm done getting everything off of my mind, then I go back and I categorize them by what they are. And this works. It is a brain dump, so this is a way to kind of low-key organize them without interfering with my flow as I'm writing down tasks. However, I haven't really been doing brain dumps lately, and that's because having it like this is not useful. I'd rather do it on a piece of scratch paper and then organize them, because then it's much more manageable for me to deal with. So, you know, one of those things that kind of changed over time. I have my quarterly goal sort of tracker slash ideas. So these are things where quarter one typically gets the stuff that I'm already going to set up for the year. But then future quarters, as I'm going through the year, I'll kind of think about something that I want to do. And so I'll add it into a quarter, or I'll realize, oh, I'm not going to have time to do this in quarter two, so I'm going to push it to quarter three or quarter four. So this I find is kind of a good way for me to add things without like fully committing to them yet, meaning putting them on my mind map in my PROJO. So this is something I found very helpful. You'll see I have a couple things that were not finished for the ends of quarter three and quarter four. They have been moved to this year. Then we get into weeklies and dailies. So this was back when I was still doing my very simple weeklies. So just kind of a general overview of the week, different tasks. I again was playing around with the Alistair method for just organizing generalized tasks. As you can see, it's far fewer, so it was not too overwhelming to use this system for doing tasks in order to kind of keep on top of things. And then this was for the upcoming week to just kind of remind me things that were going to be happening soon. So this was also a period when I was doing dailies, and then at the end of the day, I would do a little bit of journaling before I set up my next daily. And here, for example, I had dailies, not very much stuff, but then I also did a list of things that I wanted to cook. So that was pretty good. This is something I do periodically, is if I have a lot of stuff that I really just need to kind of focus on getting done. So this was in January, which means this was probably the second week of my school holidays. And so that's typically when I do this, where I have an entire week that I'm like, I need to do all of these things. Okay, let's make a spread for that. So that was what this was for. Then I have my top 5 goal overview trackers. So each goal has a little header. There's usually some sort of a tracker involved, and then whatever information I need to keep on top of that particular goal. So as you can see, I've got for font and for my career trip as well. This one didn't actually get finished, so a lot of this stuff got transferred to 2020. But for the ones that did get finished, I just did a little check mark at the bottom of the page there. And then back into dailies, journaling, weeklies, all of that kind of fun stuff. I always end up doing a gray thing for January. I'd have to go back through all my old bullet journals, but I think it's pretty common that I do a gray monochromatic theme for January, because I just really like that. So, yep. So for example, when I do my weeklies, I tend to do the date. So the dates within that week, the month, and then what week number we're on. And I know a lot of people think the week number is not very helpful. It doesn't give me that much information, but I just kind of like having that to, I don't know, it's just like a tiny piece of information. I don't do weather, but I do like having the week number on there. You know, just one of those weird little quirks. So lots and lots of journaling in here. This was also around the time I was planning my move. And so I had seen, by this point, I had actually toured my apartment. And so I was starting to work on a little like layout idea for how things could work. And then I think later I've got a couple more little sketches in here as well. Yes, here we go. So I had some other ideas. So for example, for my office, for the living room, for the balcony, all that kind of stuff. This was one where I didn't want to journal anymore, so I just did a little random lettering thing over here. So yeah, I got an essential oil diffuser, so I just did a little doodle. Probably my most common lettered quote, it's not even a quote, just like mantra almost. I probably have this multiple times in here. Then we have February. So February was, I really liked this color scheme actually. And I was going for kind of like the minimalist thing. So I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna letter, I'm just gonna hand write basically the quote and just do a little bit of cursive to like make things pop. And then we've got, same as always, monthly and tasks. So again, with the tasks, I literally still have not changed my phone screen. It has been on here, let's see, was it in January? Let's see, where's January? Whoops, one more. Okay, I didn't put it on here. This was on my tasks for literally months and I still have not done it. So like clearly not a priority. I finally just stopped writing it down. At some point I'll do it, but just not that like big of a deal. It's the glass screen that's on my phone. Like it's not actually my screen that's like broken, but the glass protector screen needs to be replaced periodically because it gets like little cracks in it. Anyway, so tracker. As always, this setup really does not change for a lot of months. I find it really helpful. So gratitude again, another brain dump. As you can see, it is much shorter. And then same with the weeklies and dailies. And this was when I decided, you know what? The weeklies are not really helpful because I have my PROJO now. So I went to just doing dailies. So I continued doing a little header just so I know when the week changes. And then I just did my dailies and journaling and kept on going. So that was a really nice change. You know, it was nice not having to draw out that weekly because I was like, I don't need it again. Like, why am I still doing this? So I stopped. So you can see sometimes I leave a little bit of white space because I just don't feel like journaling anymore, and I'll do a little bit of doodling or a lettering thing, just whatever kind of suits my fancy in that moment. So this is one, I don't always do this, but this is one where I actually, because most of the days of the week were in February, I did the weekly in February, but it was also the change of a month. And typically I just kind of keep the same colors, even if I change months. But this one, I don't know why, but this one I was like, I'm just gonna change it and do the colors that I'm going to do for March. I actually kind of like it. So there we go, finishing things up there. So now for March, this was the low-key Ravenclaw month, which I really liked. So once again, with the tasks, as you can see, I'm trying to like spread things out and make them really like have a lot of white space around them, make them more legible and all of that. Tracker, same as always. This was the period of time where I was working on doing meditation and breathing exercises in the morning. This did not last for as long as I would have liked, but I tried it. Reading, lots of books in March. Gratitude again, haha, second time. Brain dump, once again, getting even shorter. And then dailies. So you can see this was one where I think I had a lot of stuff going on with work, and so my dailies were all really short and I didn't do a lot of journaling, and like that was fine. This was one where I just did a weekend thing because I had a lot of stuff that I was trying to work on. So yeah, it keeps going pretty much as is. Needed a second library loan spread, so I went ahead and just did that in here. And then we've got April. This was like Easter egg explosion. So same setup. Honestly, my monthly setups do not change that frequently. And this was where I stopped doing the breathing and meditation. As we can see, that dropped off significantly. April was also when I went to Seattle to visit my best friend and when I got into sewing, which was probably one of the best things that happened in 2019. So gratitude, a lot of brain dump. I think what I actually did is I migrated several brain dumps because I had a couple that were open. So I think I migrated them in here, which is why I had more on this one. So for my trip, I had my pre-trip tasks, my post-trip tasks, and these I kind of break down into general things I need to do and then things I need to do basically like the morning or the night before I leave. And then this is my running list of things I want to do when I get back. As you can see, I migrated and didn't finish a couple of things, but overall I got most of it done. Then I had my trip information, a little itinerary, just an overview of what we did each day, and my packing list. And then I had dailies, journaling, etc. So same as always. And this, so I did my journaling in here, but this I think was also around the time that I started journaling again. So I actually think I brought a journal, or no, I got a journal in Seattle and I did like travel journaling. So that's why these journal entries are still pretty short, because I actually did have another journal I was using while I was there. So this was also around the time that I read The Year of Less, and I did my spending ban challenge and the processed foods challenge, which kind of turned into a mindfulness challenge. As you can see, I did not use these spreads as much as I kind of had thought I would. I mean, like, it was kind of the goal. I didn't want to use them a lot. Had those for that particular challenge. Then this, I decided that I was going to stop journaling in my bullet journal because I had gotten back into journaling every day in a separate journal. So that is when that changed. Got my YouTube workflow, was this number 2, I want to say. I think this is the second spread of that. So then I've got May, and this was where I started doing, I hadn't actually labeled them. Somebody, I think it was a comment on YouTube, was like, oh, those actually look like intentions. So that's what I've been calling them, and it's been so long I cannot remember who actually did that, but that was a great suggestion because it was exactly what they were. But these were just kind of like unnamed things that I wanted to work on in the month of May, and you can see some of them did really well, some of them not so much. But I did still have the tasks, at least for this time, and that was kind of they were different things on here, but this kind of became not necessary, as you'll see. So tracker again. At this point, I stopped doing the brain dump and gratitude in here because I was doing more journaling, so I decided to not do a separate gratitude spread and just focus more on the journaling. And the brain dump, I realized, was just not really useful for me anymore in that particular format. Like, it wasn't necessary for me to do one every single month, so I didn't do it, and I needed a new YouTube calendar, so I went ahead and set that up, because this was for May, but my last one only went to June, and I tend to start planning ahead like, you know, a month or two in advance, and so I just needed the rest of the year to be ready to go and all of that. I also had my week of mega goal planning videos in November already kind of planned out. This was a Korean month, so I was practicing handwriting in Korean, so that's why all of those headers are like that, minus cooking. So pretty standard. And the amount of pages that I use for my month gets shorter around here because I've stopped doing the journaling in here. And so sometimes at the end of the month I have a little bit of extra space, sometimes I leave it blank, sometimes I do a little bit of lettering, just kind of depends. So then we've got June, and this, I was like, okay, intentions are more important, so apparently June is when I started calling them intentions. And tasks, not so much. As you can see, only 2 things. So I was kind of playing around with what I actually needed in my monthly. Monthly log itself has obviously stayed the same. Tracker, reading. This was one that I actually needed more space. So I've got a little number down here because I ended up having to continue my reading log because I just ran out of space to write in books, because I actually read 12 books in June. It's kind of the end of the school year, so I had more free time. And then this was where I was getting 1 full week on a page because just less was going on, I guess. And so I was doing like random doodles and stuff like that at the end. And then here was my little overflow. I didn't need a lot, but I need a little bit of overflow for my reading log. So there we go. Oh, this apparently was the month I did in Italian. I honestly don't even remember things, so when I go back through and I do these flip throughs with you guys, I'm like, oh, I forgot I did that. So this was another one. I had a full page, and so I just went ahead and did a lettered quote on there. Into July, this particular highlighting still makes me kind of sad. It was a weird color choice, and it didn't turn out the way I had hoped, but in general, I like how this spread looks. So this was when I decided to drop the tasks and just focus on intentions. And I've really liked this. This kind of helps me really focus on the little like daily or weekly things that I want to do each month that sometimes would, before I did this, would kind of get like shoved to the side and I would forget to do them. So this has been really helpful. So tracker, reading, etc. This I've started when I have big trips and stuff. I mark it at the top of my tracker so that if things don't get filled out the way they normally do, I remember why. And that I find is really helpful for like not beating myself up for something that I didn't do, because I'll remember, oh hey, I was on a trip, like of course I didn't do that. So that has been nice. This keeps on going. I don't know why I decided to cut this off like that. It looks like kind of cool, but kind of weird, like, you know. There we go, third YouTube workflow tracker, and another 2 film spread because I ran out of room on the other one. Another expense report because I hit July and I only had up through June on the first one. I think this is my 3rd library loan spread and also my last one. And I've actually kind of stopped doing them in general because I use ebooks. Everything, like all of the due dates and stuff, are in the app. And so I've found that that is just, that's enough information for me to have. I don't need to have another spread for it. So I think this is the 3rd time I've had Just Breathe. You'll see a lot of repetitions. I like my routines. So this was when I was in the US to visit family. So here was trip information, packing, etc. This one was pretty truncated because my pre-trip and post-trip, it was during the summer, so I didn't need to do as much stuff before I left as I normally do when it's during the school year. Then we've got August, and as you can see, this was around the time that I read Brene Brown's book. Intentions again, and this was, I actually started, for a couple of months I did a little review at the end of the month. I don't remember why I stopped doing that, but it was kind of nice to just say like, oh hey, how did this go? So this, for example, I realized I had done too many language things. I really only was working on Korean, and so in the future I stopped doing Arabic and Italian because I realized I was just focusing on one language for that time. So tracker, reading, etc. Another really, really ready month. Dailies, oops. And if you're wondering where all of my other collections are, honestly, most of the time they become planning pages in the end book of my PROJO, and aside from long-term trackers, I tend to not do those kinds of collections in here anymore. Just, that's kind of the way that the system has worked out. These were things I wanted to do, so we had our teacher back to school at the end of August, and then the kids went back on the 2nd, I want to say, 2nd or 3rd. And so I had all of my pre-back to school tasks that I wanted to finish up before we had the kids coming back and things got crazy. So September, very kind of chill, muted month. So this was when I was like, okay, we need to cut back on the intentions. Having like 8 is definitely too many. Let's try and focus on 4. And I think I've kept to 4 probably around since this time. I think 4 is a pretty good number for me, I found. So tracker again. Things, I accidentally used the wrong color pen and I don't know what I was thinking. I just like picked it out of my bin and it was just not the right color for whatever reason. So end of September means it is October time. Oh, and this is my pre-trip tasks and post-trip tasks for Korea. So before October, I ended up doing all of my trip spreads because I knew it was going to be very busy around that time. And as you can see, most of the stuff got done, like pretty good. And then I have October, which is always my doodle month. I had a lot of fun with this one. So intentions, monthly, as always, tracker, started doing a couple of stickers in here. Did not read very much, but that was okay because I actually had read so much during the summer that it kind of compensated. So weeklies, or dailies rather, stickers, just lots and lots of Halloween stuff. There we go. And then this, I basically just stopped. I didn't actually bring my bullet journal with me when I went to Korea, so I just have a gap. And when I got back, I started up again because I was using a specific, well, I was using my traveler's notebook, and so I had a dedicated planning spread in there. And so this just kind of helped me not bring so many notebooks when I was on my trip. Then we've got November. So pretty standard. Things going along pretty well. I think that's number 4. There we go. Trying to go through these a little faster since they're very similar. So December, last month. So once again, actually this was not doing so well on the font or Korean. This kind of was a month or 2 where that kind of happened, maybe 3 months almost. And then this was when I decided that I wanted to change my tracker. So I dropped the full skincare tracker from the evening and just did the did I do it or did I not do it, down here. And because I had all of this extra space, I decided to do a full 2019 review, and then I just have a simplified legend because I no longer needed the skincare legend. So that was kind of how I made use of this space. And then at the end of the year, I tend to write how many books I've read for the actual year, just so that I kind of remember if I flip back through my bullet journal. Whoops, there we go. So my goal was 60 and I ended up reading 86. Whoops. And then into dailies again. My parents actually came to visit for Christmas, so I had kind of low-key dailies while they were there, and then when they left, that was when I started making my lists again because I needed to work on some stuff. So I had very few pages left. I just did this by 2019. This, I don't know what happened there. You know, it just was a thing. And then I had It's Been Fun because I had this extra page. And then I have my final YouTube workflow. I think this is number 4. And I ended up transferring the last 2 videos that I hadn't actually posted that were to be posted in no, up here, that were to be posted in 2020. So I just transferred them to my new bullet journal so that I wouldn't have to come back in here to deal with them. And that was the end. Like literally, I used every single page in this notebook. I don't know what happened here, but I did a little pen test and it turned green on the side. I have no idea. But yeah, so that is the end in here. I don't have anything in my back pocket because I do use a notebook cover. I tend to not put things in my pockets. So the last thing I want to do before I let you guys go is show you my reading tracker for 2019, just since I don't tend to show it in videos, like I don't really know where to show it. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of how that actually went. So my 2019 reading challenge, 60 books, 5 in French, 1 in Spanish, 1 in Italian, 1 in Korean. As you can see, I read 86 total. I read 5 in French and 2 in Spanish, none in Italian or Korean. Italian I probably could have done, Korean was a stretch. Then I have my tracker. So I do basically do a little headphone. It's a kind of doofy looking doodle, but I do a little headphone if I listen to an audiobook. And then I do a little initial with a circle around it for any books I read in a foreign language. So F for French, S for Spanish, pretty standard. And then I did have my little overflow over here. So yeah, that is 2019. It was definitely a year where I really feel like I hit my stride and just had found a system that worked for me, and I only needed to make little tweaks as the year went on because it worked, so why change it kind of thing. And honestly, with what I've set up for 2020, I haven't really changed that much from what I was doing by the end of last year. So there you have it. That is 2019 in my bullet journal. If you guys have any comments or questions, let me know down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!